in this episode of Art Loft. Political cartoons at the Truman Little White House.
We have several of the original cartoons. Most of them were individually drawn by various artists.
Corita Kent, the activist nun / pop artist.
People didn't really know what to do with a nun who was making pop art. Being a woman artist within the pop art world you don't hear as much about women pop artists. It was pretty male dominated.
A precious collection of Haitian art.
It's about 45 works of art, which basically runs from about the 1940s, the late 1940s into the 1980s.
And artists live and work at Sailboat Bend.
So what we do here at 1310 is when there's an event in the gallery, the residents will open up their doors, like I have my door open tonight, and we'll have anybody who wants to can come in and see our studio and see our work.
Coming up next on Art Loft.
Funding for Art Loft was made possible by Friends of Art and
Where there is freedom, there is expression. The Florida Keys and Key West.
Hi, I bet you know by now that I'm Jumani Anamdi, and from the studios of South Florida PBS, this right here is Art Loft. Welcome back. I'm Jumani Anamdi. From artistic nuns to an unparalleled collection of Haitian art, we covered all on Art Loft this week. First up, in Key West, you can find sun, fun, and political satire, courtesy of the Harry S. Truman Little White House. This historic landmark recently hosted an exhibition of political cartoons, mostly featuring President Truman himself. Join us as we see what makes these drawings so timeless. Check it out.
My name is Bob Wolz, and I'm the Executive Director of the Harry S. Truman Little White House in Key West, Florida. The Little White House itself is 9,000 square feet. Without any doubt, this is one of the most historic spots in South Florida in that 7 American presidents have used it. Our structure was built in 1890 as Navy housing, but it rapidly became used by a number of presidents. President Taft, President Roosevelt. Harry Truman used it the most, so he gets his name on it forever. Currently, we are very honored to have a collection of presidential cartoons. The president himself collected cartoons, and as most of us know, cartoons can either support a cause or they can go against it. And Harry Truman enjoyed the press. He had a good relationship with the press most of the time, but political cartoons being what they are, you could almost erase any president's name and insert the current president and it would still apply. The exhibit that we're running right now is all Harry Truman cartoons, although the earliest ones go clear back to the time of Thomas Jefferson. So political cartoons have been around for a long time in the United States. We have currently a free exhibit of presidential cartoons that begin when President Truman became president in April of 1945, and they continue through his presidency into his campaigning for Adlai Stevenson in the 1952 campaign, as well as even the 1956 campaign. So Harry Truman had covered a wide span of time and was often the subject of political cartoons. We have several of the original cartoons. Most of them were individually drawn by various artists, and so each one captured their own vision of what they could take a poke at the president or at the opposition party. Sometimes the cartoonists would pick back and forth between the two parties, so no one was sacred in this endeavor. One of the subjects that always seems to come up, and it doesn't matter who the president is that the president just isn't spending enough time in Washington. We need that guy to be there 24/7 because we're paying his salary. And it certainly applied to President Truman. In 1953, they published a cartoon with his head buried in the sand, like he didn't have a clue what was going on. He's just hiding out in Key West, Florida. One of my favorite pieces of history was on March 12th of 1947. England was pulling out of the Mediterranean. Greece and Turkey were about to fall to communist rebels. And so President Truman announced to the Congress what is known as the Truman Doctrine. And what it said is that America will defend freedom-loving people no matter where they are in the world. The day after that announcement to Congress, the president flew to Key West, and the full impact of that hit Key West. Now, ironically, not everyone agreed with the president, and so they brought out a cartoon showing America's resources flowing overseas in foreign aid to Greece and Turkey and to Chiang Kai-shek and to Perón in Argentina. So just like today, the American people love to complain. The president loved political cartoons himself. He collected them. And so he invited all the different cartoonists of the major newspapers to sketch the president at the White House. And so each one has their own version of what Harry looked like. This one is referring to the fact that following World War II, there was great inflation in the United States, something we've not seen for a long time, which is a good thing. And so the Congress had passed price controls. And so in this particular cartoon, they're making political commentary on the control of prices. And basically, they're not very happy with the fact that Congress is trying to set prices on everything from refrigerators to snow tires. You know, we always invite people to come and see the Little White House, of course. The Little White House is honored to be a property of the state of Florida. The governor and cabinet are our landlords. And so we invite the citizens of South Florida to come and see a very special place called the Truman Little White House.
Coming up on Art Loft.
It's about 45 works of art, which basically runs from about the 1940s, the late 1940s into the 1980s.
In the 1960s, Sister Corita Kent realized that the best way to spread the gospel was through art. The story of this nun, radical nun at that, was almost lost in history until a recent exhibition from the Harvard Art Museums has rediscovered her work and placed her alongside the kings of pop art. Take a look with Boston WGBH.
Searching for religious inspiration in the 1960s, an activist nun turned active artist named Sister Corita Kent found it in the supermarket.
One might not normally think of Wonder Bread as related to communion, but she wanted to make that connection in her work.
In an era of upheaval, Kent wanted to ground people through art. A Roman Catholic nun, she lived in Los Angeles and headed the art department at a religious school there.
She would drive around the city, and she sent her students out to do what she called looking assignments in these car dealerships and supermarkets. But it's also important historically, because as pop art is emerging around 1962, the two main centers are New York, of course, and Los Angeles.
And Kent was paying attention, reveling in Joseph Alber's experiments in color. She marveled at the pop art stylings of Jasper Johns and Roy Lichtenstein, who were receiving early LA shows. And she sought out Andy Warhol's work.
She never had near the national recognition that Warhol did. People didn't really know what to do with a nun who was making pop art.
And they still don't. Enter the Harvard Art Museums, which argues in its latest show that Corita Kent belongs in the pantheon of pop artists who defined a generation. Jennifer Quick helped curate the show.
What happened to her that she didn't have the same trajectory that they had?
Frankly, being a woman artist within the pop art world you don't hear as much about women pop artists. It was pretty male-dominated.
But Kent was undaunted and saw opportunity where others saw potato chip packaging. To her, well-known images were the perfect way to teach Vatican II, the movement to modernize the church, partly with more accessible language.
We see Corita Kent borrowing words likely she found in the grocery store, bread, peaches, very common products. But it's also encouraging her viewers to think about, why do we need this war on poverty? How can we help fight against poverty? And as Catholics, we're compelled to do so.
Kent drew a mountain of controversy, though, as she tried to make the Virgin Mary more relatable via tomatoes.
She uses Del Monte tomatoes, the brand name and the logo, to reinvent the way we think about Mary. And so to say that if we say Del Monte tomatoes are the juiciest of all, then certainly if we think this food product is so wonderful, we can say that the Virgin Mary is the juiciest tomato of them all.
Working out of her LA studio, Kent used a printing process where she experimented with angles, day-glow colors, and familiar branding. She then infused her work with text, from everyone from the Pope to the Beatles. Feeling Groovy is a print from 1967.
She's included lyrics from the Simon and Garfunkel song. The lyrics are slow down, you move too fast. So we see juxtaposed on one hand these signifiers of traffic, speed, Los Angeles, moving through the city with, from a popular song, nonetheless, an admonition that perhaps we should slow down sometimes and consider what's around us.
In 1968, Kent left her religious order and moved to Boston. She became even more radical and more pointed as protests and war consumed the nation. Just like Warhol, her work became strikingly visceral.
She uses photographs instead of hand-cut stencils, and these photographs are very direct about what's happening politically and socially in the country. So Life magazine covers profiling the Vietnam War, photographs showing the assassinations of, Martin Luther King or Robert F. Kennedy, race riots. So the work becomes a lot more direct in its commentary on politics.
Kent remained in Boston for the rest of her life, producing prints and a landmark legacy. A gas tank adorned with her rainbow swash overlooking Dorchester Bay.
And she thought of it in terms of the idea of a rainbow being a joyful expression as being related to Genesis and God's promise never to flood the earth again, as it's recorded in the scriptures. But on the level of pop art, it's also very significant because Corita Kent is making her own pop art monument, giving Boston its own pop art monument.
Now elevating this sister to the queen of pop art.
Coming up on Art Loft.
So what we do here at 1310 is when there's an event in the gallery, the residents will open up their doors. Like I have my door open tonight, and we'll have anybody who wants to can come in and see our studio and see our work.
The Milwaukee Art Museum is home to an incredible collection of Haitian art. Now, after many pieces of art were destroyed by recent earthquakes in Haiti, the collection became more precious than ever. Now, here's a story from Milwaukee PBS. Thank you, Milwaukee Art Museum. Gotta preserve the culture. Take a look.
The most important Haitian artists are included in this collection, and really outstanding examples of all of their works. And unfortunately, with the earthquakes in Haiti, a lot of the original works of art were damaged. And so because this collection is here, we have first-rate examples of these artists' work. We are in the Coles Art Generation Lab that is home to the Richard and Erna Flagg collection of Haitian art here at the Milwaukee Art Museum. It's about 45 works of art, which basically runs from about the 1940s, the late 1940s into the 1980s. There was a Milwaukee businessman, Richard Flagg, who owned the Flagg Tanning Company, and he and his wife Erna were art collectors, and they got interested in Haitian art, and they built their collection, and then in 1991 they gave it to the Milwaukee Art Museum. I think this is the first time that it's been presented in a gallery that really allows you to kind of consider the work in and of itself, but then also combined with these educational elements really helps you understand what these Haitian artists were thinking, how they were making their art in context of the country, the Haitian culture that they were living in at the time. This is the first time that the gallery is organized into three kind of schools of Haitian art, and it has to do with where the artists were located. There's the Port-au-Prince School, which is where the Centre d'Art, the first major school of art that was a central place for Haitian artists to come and either learn how to make art or share their ideas about art, or it functioned as a commercial gallery. It opened in 1944 in Port-au-Prince. Hector Hippolyte is one of the artists that they collected in depth, and we have a lovely wall of Hippolyte's work. He is probably considered the most important Haitian artist to come out of the Centre d'Art. A lot of the subject matter has to do with religion, and so that's in one part of the gallery. Another part of the gallery is the Cap-Haïtien School, which is a northern city in Haiti. Stylistically, that art is a little bit flatter, and the subject matter often is either secular subject matter or a lot of historic moments, so capturing some of the important dates or events in Haitian history. There are education components that are integrated throughout the space to help contextualize the collection. For instance, there's a station that addresses the steel drum sculptures. We have 9 steel drum sculptures hanging on a wall, a couple more freestanding ones in the galleries, and this station kind of takes you through the process of how those are made. They're made in a suburb north of Port-au-Prince, Haiti, called Croix-des-Bouquets, and this town has become famous for making these sculptures. So these sculptures start out as oil drums, and they are repurposed into these sculptures, and these artists have to flatten the drums out, and then they carve them, and then they have to, file them down. And so this station lets you see that process in all of its stages. The sculptures are beautiful, and so when you're looking at them on the wall, you can, sit there and say, oh, that's a metal sculpture, but then when you think about the fact that they were actually a cylinder, the shape of the material was actually this cylinder, at one point, I think that helps you understand the creative process behind the works. I think people are really going to be surprised to see how many examples of those sculptures we have, and they're displayed in a really innovative way. A lot of the artists in this collection were self-taught, and we have a long-standing commitment to the work of self-taught artists. I'm really proud of how we use the architecture of the mezzanine level, which is where this gallery is located, and kind of went out of bounds and went beyond the gallery in some cases. How we kept it open. It's a very open feeling to it, but we are still showing a lot of art. Really, we're hoping with this new gallery, with this kind of integrated curatorial and education components, to really kind of round out people's understanding of Haitian culture. And an understanding that they're seeing in this gallery some of the world's greatest paintings by Haitian artists, right here in Milwaukee.
Next week on Art Loft.
So if you look at it as a painting and you look at the robot as a tool, then you need to control your tools, right? That's what painters do.
Sailboat Bend in Fort Lauderdale is a unique space where artists can live, work, and share their creations with the community at large. Join our Art Loft crew as we visit actual art lofts in this engaging profile. Great job, Sharina. Loved it.
In Fort Lauderdale, the residents of Sailboat Bend Artist Lofts have opened their doors for their monthly open studio event. Here, dozens of artists welcome the community into their studios and their homes. These artists' live-work spaces were developed by ArtSpace Projects in Broward County to ensure that rising housing costs won't push artists out of this South Florida community.
Having a live and work space as a working artist is so wonderful, and it means so much to us as artists because we're really supported in the community. And what happens living here, especially at Sailboat Bend 1310 Gallery, is we all support each other, and we're always there for each other. My name is Melissa Caprio. I'm a photographer, and I do all different kinds of photography. I am doing right now a project called Postcards to the Universe, where I ask people to create a manifesting postcard and I photograph them, and I am creating a book. And behind me, you will see this is my work that's on the wall. I've been doing photography now for about 20 years, I would say. So what we do here at 1310 is when there's an event in the gallery, the residents will open up their doors. Like I have my door open tonight, and we'll have anybody who wants to can come in and see our studio and see our work. And it opens it up to a whole bunch of people that don't even realize how much good local artwork there is. And everybody who comes into these studios absolutely loves it. They can't believe that this place even exists.
We believe in a diverse community, and that includes having artists here. Artists can contribute so much and open people's minds to creativity, to technology, to new ideas. And it's very important that we have artists living amongst us, and as property prices rise in neighborhoods like this, it's important that we still have places for artists to live, to work, and to integrate into our community.
These open events are a hit with visitors, but they aren't the only ones who benefit from the interaction.
It allows me to get involved with community. It's an incredible space. I have nothing to worry about here. It's there's other artists that are great. The environment's terrific. We do shows here every month. Each artist gets another month, and they can do whatever they want here. So it's an incredible opportunity.
This month's featured artist, photographer David Muir, utilized every inch of gallery space. Live performances of dance, poetry, and even a fashion show kept all three landings brimming with arts entertainment.
As a photographer, I'm not just a photographer. I'm an artist who expresses myself through my work. So you see my photography on the walls. I do want you to know that even though I have gained some amount of notoriety because of my photography, don't think for a second it's not still difficult to show your work and to open yourself up to critique and to really just put yourself out there. And so I am very, 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 very happy to be able to do that one more time.
Sharing the spotlight is a common theme at the Artist Lofts. During one of his feature months, photographer Sylvain Dennis co-hosted a fundraiser for local nonprofit organization, the Poverello Center.
I'm a photographer, French-Canadian. Moved here in the Art Loft approximately 2 years ago. I've done a show with Barry Gross. It was for a foundation called Poverello. Some of the proceeds of the sale of the art went towards their foundation, which helps feed some underprivileged families in Fort Lauderdale. It was a fantastic show. A lot of photographers specialize in one type of photography. I'm one of the rare few that will probably hit every type of photography style or things to photograph that's out there. I started as a photographer from nature and landscape. I've shot everything else from New York fashion. I've done some in LA, and everything else portrait, anything you can imagine. The more difficult, the more challenging, the more fun, and the better I'm at it.
Nico Eulis fully embraces his role as an artist and an arts educator.
My name is Nico Eulis. I am a visual artist and also a professor at Broward College Central Campus and South Campus. In my career, in my job, I am both artist and professor equally. Every day, the teaching is just as creative as making the artwork, and they feed into each other. I get inspired by my students, and my students help generate all the aspects of my work. And then with that work, I try to give it back to them so that they can see the same kind of inspiration they give me. I try to do all mediums. Every medium is unique, and in that uniqueness, it tells and describes a story. So sometimes I find myself doing painting because it's going to impact the viewer properly, and then other times I might do ceramics because I want it to be held and be much more of an interaction with the person, the viewer, the audience. So the medium dictates a lot and how my voice is going to be heard.
There's so much great work to see. Consider this your invitation.
Thanks for joining us on Art Loft. You can connect with us anytime on social media at Art Loft SFL and watch us anytime on the PBS app by selecting WPBT2 as your local station. For Art Loft, I'm Jumani Nnamdi. Now, remember, art imitates life, so do what? That's right, live a beautiful life. Peace, peace, peace. Out.
Funding for Art Loft was made possible by Friends of Art and
Where there is freedom, there is expression. The Florida Keys and Key West.